The jackhammer stopped mid-thunder. Hey, boss, you need to see this. A construction worker stood frozen beside a jagged hole in the concrete floor, sweat glistening on his forehead despite the spring chill. The foreman walked over, expecting a busted pipe, until he saw the dull curve of rusted yellow metal poking through the dirt. He wiped it clean with his gloved hand. A number. Route 47, Willow Creek Middle. They called the police. Then someone opened the back hatch. The smell hit first. Dust, rot, something like old clothes sealed for decades. Inside were rows of empty seats, and scattered across them, worn-out backpacks, a moldy cheerleading pom-pom, a lunchbox with a faded Barney sticker, and on the last seat a child's shoe, still tied, still waiting. What comes next will change everything. To uncover the truth hidden in the shadows, stay with us. Subscribe to Missing Shadows, where every story whispers a secret. Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, May 17th, 1994. It was the kind of spring morning that made small-town parents feel grateful. The sun was out, birds chirped in the maple trees, and 25 middle school girls waited in front of Willow Creek Middle, packed lunches in hand, buzzing with excitement. The field trip to the new Civil War Museum outside Harrisburg had been planned for months. For 8th grader Emily Langford, it was more than just a history lesson. It was an escape. Her home life was complicated. Her mom worked double shifts at the diner. Her dad had moved out last summer and hadn't called since Christmas. But none of that mattered today. Her best friend Kira, loud and fearless, bounced next to her with a disposable camera. "I'm taking like 100 photos," she declared, snapping Emily mid-bite of her granola bar. "Smile, loser!" Mrs. Newell, their social studies teacher, stood by the bus doors, clipboard in hand, calling names and checking off boxes. She was the kind of teacher who wore bright scarves, had no kids of her own, and called her students "my girls." The bus driver, Frankie Dubbs, grunted a hello to each child as they boarded, his thermos clanking as he shifted in his seat. Parents waved from curbs. A few wiped away tears. And then, at exactly 8:42 a.m., the bus pulled away from the school parking lot, rumbling toward Route 6. It never came back. When the bus didn't arrive at the museum by noon, staff assumed traffic. By 2 p.m., the school began calling parents. Panic hit just after 3 o'clock when the state police found no sign of the vehicle along the scheduled route. No skid marks, no signs of an accident, no signal from the CB radio. The entire bus had vanished. Flyers went up within hours. Search parties combed the roads, forests, and rivers. Helicopters buzzed overhead. For days, then weeks, Willow Creek stood still, frozen in time, haunted by the silence of 25 empty desks. Emily's mother stood on her porch every night for months, porch light burning until sunrise. She never turned it off. Willow Creek Police Department, May 18th, 1994. The air in the precinct felt heavier than usual. Sheriff Dean Whitaker, a stocky man with a sun-weathered face and deep lines around his eyes, stood in front of a crude map pinned to the wall. Red string connected dots across Pennsylvania, possible routes, gas stations, landmarks. 25 girls, a teacher, and a driver don't just vanish, he said, more to himself than the team behind him. But they had. The bus had taken Route 6, a scenic but predictable drive toward Harrisburg. It was flat, open country, easy to track. No steep cliffs, no dangerous turns. There were a few blind spots in the hills, sure, but nothing large enough to swallow a 40-foot school bus whole. Still, every tree line was searched, every lake dragged. Farmers opened barns. Retired veterans joined the grid searches. Even the Amish lent horses for off-road terrain. But nothing. No tire tracks, no broken branches, no oil drips, nothing. At home, televisions flickered with updates. CNN ran the story for 3 days straight. Missing, 25 schoolgirls vanished during field trip. Reporters swarmed the town. They interviewed parents at candlelight vigils. Emily Langford's photo, bright eyes, crooked ponytail, became the face of the story. Her mom, Lena, stood behind microphones outside her porch, trying not to break down. She didn't even want to go that morning, Lena whispered. Said she had a bad dream about water. That line went viral, at least by 90s standards. Water? Was there a lake they missed? An underground spring? Theories bloomed like weeds. Cult abduction. UFO. Some even whispered about Mrs. Newell, how it was convenient she had no children of her own. Rumors became poison. By summer, the media moved on. Sheriff Whitaker stayed with the case, obsessively. His own daughter had graduated from Willow Creek Middle just the year before. He refused to call it cold, but by August, the governor pulled the extra funding. Families drifted into quiet grief. Some left town, some got angry. Lena Langford started drinking. Others, like Kira's parents, clung to routine, setting the dinner table for 4, even after one chair stayed empty. Mrs. Newell's husband, Raymond, hung a photo of his wife in their front window and refused to take it down. By fall, he started standing behind it, watching the street. The bus, the girls, the teacher, they became ghosts of Willow Creek. Willow Creek Mall, April 13th, 2024. The crime scene tape cut across the entrance like a scar. Early morning shoppers stood behind barricades, phones raised, murmuring as uniformed officers formed a line near the gaping hole in the mall floor. Detective Erin Morales stood silently at the edge, arms crossed, a clipboard resting against her hip. She'd transferred to the Willow Creek Division 2 years ago, mostly handling break-ins and domestic calls. This was something else. The rusted bus, half uncovered, leaned slightly to one side, its frame buckled but still recognizable. Faded yellow paint peeled away in strips. The number above the windshield was barely legible. Bus number 14, Willow Creek Middle School. God, she whispered, it's real. She'd heard about the case, of course. Everyone in Pennsylvania had. But seeing it with her own eyes, decades buried under what used to be a Macy's, felt like stepping into someone else's nightmare. A forensic team worked carefully, sifting through debris from the back hatch. Inside were remnants frozen in time, mummified papers, molded clothing, a decaying backpack with Kira written in purple marker, a tarnished wedding ring on the driver's finger bones. But the most unsettling discovery was in the final row. A water-damaged composition notebook, its cover nearly destroyed. Pages were stuck together, but a few legible ones remained. Detective Morales flipped through with gloved hands. May 17th. We're not on the right road. Mrs. Newell is whispering to the driver again. Everyone's scared. Something is wrong. The radio won't work. Kira says we should turn back. I don't think we can. E.L. E.L., she said aloud. Emily Langford. Across town, Lena Langford sat on her porch as she had every night for 30 years. A dim lamp beside her, the same porch light still glowing. Her hair had gone silver. Her hands, once soft, were now calloused from time and grief. She didn't flinch when the reporters came back. She didn't answer the knocks on her door. But when a young journalist, Maya Brooks, approached with a notebook photograph and said gently, I think this belonged to Emily, Lena's expression cracked. She invited her in. I knew she'd left something behind, Lena whispered. I just didn't know where. Later that night, Morales met with Sheriff Whitaker, now long retired, frail but sharp-eyed, at his nursing home. She handed him the file, and his fingers trembled as he touched it. I always said it wasn't random, he muttered. They buried the truth, with concrete. What do you mean, Morales asked. The old man leaned back, eyes distant. That land where the mall sits now wasn't supposed to be built on. It was bought in a rush, rezoned quietly. People high up in Harrisburg signed off. I asked too many questions back then. Got stonewalled. Lost budget, lost backing. Do you think someone buried the bus there on purpose? He looked at her then. Director. Cold. Someone wanted it hidden, and they had the power to make it disappear. The town buzzed again. Old wounds reopened. Families returned. Kira's brother flew in from California. Mrs. Newell's widower, now near 80, gave his first interview in decades. Internet sleuths posted side-by-side maps of the 1994 bus route and the mall's foundation plans, and Detective Morales knew this wasn't just a recovery, it was a message. The past wasn't buried, it was waiting. Willow Creek Police Department, April 15, 2024. Detective Morales' office was a wall of history now, yellowing newspaper clippings from 1994, photos of the girls, old maps, school yearbooks, and now the newly unearthed items from the bus displayed like puzzle pieces. At the center of it all, Emily Langford's journal. Most of the entries were water damage beyond legibility, but a few fragments remained. The bus turned onto a road that wasn't on the map. Mrs. Newell kept looking behind us, like someone was following. We stopped somewhere. There was a fence, a sign. I think it said, restricted. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start. Morales reached for her coffee when a knock interrupted her thoughts. Got something, said Officer Jenna Singh, holding a cardboard box. From the county archives. You're going to want to see this. Inside were zoning applications from 1993, the year before the disappearance. Most were routine, stamped and signed. But one folder, marked Confidential, Site C, held a rushed approval dated just 5 days after the bus vanished. It authorized the acquisition of 22 acres of private land for public commercial development, later becoming the Willow Creek Mall. It was signed by a former state official, Senator Alton Brigg. Morales narrowed her eyes. Didn't he resign under pressure? She asked. Yup, Singh said. 10 years ago, ethics violations, real estate scandals. They exchanged a look. This wasn't a coincidence. Later that day, interview at Maple Ridge Nursing Home. Senator Brigg, now 78, sat upright in a motorized chair, still dressed in tailored shirts like he was in office. Morales and Maya Brooks, the young journalist now documenting the case for a local podcast, sat across from him. I don't know what you're digging for, Briggs said smoothly. That mall saved the town, hundreds of jobs, economic boost, all legal. Morales slid a photo of the bus across the table. You signed off on a property deal 5 days after 25 children went missing. The land it was built on is where we just found their bus. Brigg hesitated, his mouth tightened. That's a hell of an accusation, Detective. Maya leaned forward. Did you know the land was previously owned by a private military contractor? Silence. Briggs stood slowly. You should leave. But Morales had seen something in his eyes. Fear. April 18th, Willow Creek Middle School, now closed. Morales and Maya walked through the boarded-up building, guided by the former janitor, Donnie Fields, now in his 60s. He remembered the girls. He remembered the day they left. Mrs. Newell was different that morning, he said, unlocking a rusted maintenance closet. Kept checking her watch, pacing. He paused, then handed Morales a stack of old audio tapes. These were from the school radio logs. Thought they got erased, but I made copies. Don't tell nobody. Back at the station, they played one. Muffled static, Mrs. Newell's voice. We're not supposed to be on this road, Frank. It's not the right turn. Driver's voice. We were told to follow the marked gate. Someone radioed ahead. Mrs. Newell. But that wasn't from dispatch. It didn't sound like them. Then silence. Then a child's scream. Then nothing. That night, Morales stood outside the ruins of the mall, now fully shut down and cordoned off as a crime scene. The media had descended again. Families gathered for candlelight vigils. The air was thick with memory and grief. But beneath the noise, Morales felt it. A pattern, a shadow stretching from the past to now. Zoning fraud, private land, a manipulated route, and now, new voices being silenced. She stared at the broken ground. This wasn't just a cover-up, she said quietly. This was a handoff. Someone gave those girls up for something. April 21st, 2024, Willow Creek Library Archives. Maya Brooks stared at the grainy footage looping on her laptop screen. The school had digitized a handful of year-end VHS tapes from 1994, mostly assemblies, sports, talent shows. She'd sat through hours of them, hoping for something, anything. Then, at minute 37 of a fifth-grade talent show, the camera panned briefly to the audience. A slow zoom, laughing parents, squirming children, and then Mrs. Newell. Not strange, except she was whispering something to a man in uniform beside her. He wore no school badge, no familiar face. And when the camera shook briefly, Maya caught a blurry emblem on his sleeve. She paused, rewound, zoomed. It was military, not local, private security. She didn't know it yet, but that was the first glimpse of the truth. April 23rd, Lena Langford's home. That evening, Maya showed the still frame to Lena. Lena's face tightened instantly. "I've seen him before," she said. "He came by the house 2 days after Emily disappeared. Said he was assisting local authorities and needed access to her room." "What did he take?" Maya asked. Lena closed her eyes. "Her camera." Maya's pulse quickened. "Camera?" "She took it on the trip. Disposable. We bought it the day before. I asked about it for weeks. No one ever gave me answers." April 24th, Detective Morales' home office. Late night Morales was reviewing property deeds when Maya's message lit up her phone. "Need to talk. Someone knew they'd be on that road. I think it was staged." Then another. Private security firm tied to Brig was active near Site C in the early 90s. They tested containment systems there. "Containment for what?" Morales texted back. No reply. She called. No answer. April 25th, Maya Brooks missing. The next morning, Maya's car was found parked outside the county library. Engine cold, driver door slightly ajar, laptop gone, bag missing, phone wiped. Detective Morales was first on scene. She stared at the empty seat, heart thudding. Not another disappearance. No note, no signs of struggle, no witnesses. The parallels were horrifying. That afternoon, the town spiraled. Rumors exploded. The families of the 1994 victims held a press conference demanding federal oversight. Lena Langford collapsed mid-speech. Someone shouted, "They're covering it up again!" Morales made a silent vow. No more vanishing. Not this time. April 26th. Morales revisits the bus alone, and after hours, she returned to the excavation site. The bus had been fully lifted from the earth, cordoned off under a forensic tent. She stepped inside, flashlight sweeping the hollow shell. It smelled of mildew and rust, but something else too, something faint. She crouched near the last row where Emily's journal had been found, and then she saw it. Wedged between the seat cushions, coated in dirt, a photograph, black and white, faded, but clear enough to see 5 of the girls standing outside a tall chain-link gate. Behind them a sign, restricted zone, Site C, entry authorized only. The girls weren't smiling. They looked confused, maybe even afraid. And behind them, slightly out of frame, the same man from the talent show. April 27th. Homeland Security arrives. The photo sparked federal involvement. Morales handed everything over. The mall site was placed under lockdown. Excavations expanded. Nearby land was scanned. That evening, Morales sat with Lena. Neither spoke for a long while. Then Lena whispered, "Emily always knew things. She was quiet, but she watched. She saw people. Maybe she wrote it all down." Morales nodded slowly. "And they made sure no one ever read it. But now they had." The story was breaking, and someone was scared. April 28th, undisclosed federal facility outside Harrisburg. Detective Morales sat in a cold, windowless room across from a man who refused to give his real name. "Call me Sam, that's all you need," he said, sliding a sealed folder toward her. He'd reached out through a burner phone, claiming he'd once worked as a security contractor for Orion's Shield, the private firm tied to Site C and Senator Briggs' development. "I was 22, ex-Marine. Didn't ask questions. We were told the site was part of a water treatment test facility." "What was really there?" Morales asked. Sam hesitated, then said, "A failed experiment. Underground containment, chemical storage from the Cold War. Some of it was leaking. The feds needed it quiet, cheap. They buried it. And when that school bus turned onto the wrong road, someone made sure it never turned back." Morales stared at him, breath shallow. "Are you saying the girls were silenced?" "They saw something they weren't supposed to. I think they were taken alive. At least, for a while." April 29th, Homeland Security dig site. 1.2 miles from mall construction crews unearthed a rusted steel hatch beneath a thicket of overgrown brush. Exactly where the old Site C blueprints said it would be. The hatch led down into a series of decaying tunnels and storage rooms. Inside one of the rooms, they found more than mold and crates. Handprints, small, child-sized, marked along the walls in dried dirt. Scratches on the concrete, even names: Kira, Beth, Ellie, Sarah. Morales stood frozen as forensic teams photographed the scene. It wasn't just a burial site, it had been a prison. April 30th, national outcry begins. The news exploded across major networks. Breaking: underground bunker found near Willow Creek, tied to 1994 school bus disappearance. Families were flown in, lawsuits filed, congressional hearings were proposed. Briggs disappeared from his nursing home overnight, reportedly relocated under federal custody. But amidst all the chaos, something else happened. Maya Brooks was found. May 1st, rural cabin, 60 miles north. She was disoriented, dehydrated, and bruised, but alive. A trucker found her wandering near a gas station at dawn. She claimed she'd been held in a windowless room, drugged, questioned, and warned to stop digging. "They didn't want me dead," she whispered to Morales from her hospital bed. "They just wanted me silent." But Maya had something they didn't know she kept: a second copy of Emily's journal pages, photographed and backed up to the cloud. Among them, one chilling entry. "May 17th, someone radioed and told us to stop. Mrs. Newell cried. Frankie locked the doors. Then men came and opened the hatch. We went underground. I held Kira's hand. It was cold." May 3, final confrontation. Morales received an unmarked envelope at the station. Inside, a flash drive, surveillance footage. Date, May 18th, 1994. Time, 3:14 p.m. Location, entrance to Site C. The video showed the bus pulling through a fence line. A group of armed men approached. Mrs. Newell exited first, shouting and waving. She was restrained. One by one, the girls were removed, calm, confused. Then the video cut. But in the final frame, Morales froze. A man in the background, sunglasses, silver hair, clipboard. She pulled up the footage from the 1994 school assembly, zoomed in, same man, and underneath his photo, in the internal DHS files, Leon F. Newell, Site Logistics Director, Orion Shield, retired military. Mrs. Newell's husband. May 5th, Morales visits. Raymond Newell Raymond, now 80, answered the door with shaking hands. "I always wondered how long it would take," he said softly. "You were there," Morales said. "You signed the route deviation. You made the call." Tears filled his eyes. "I didn't know they'd keep them. I was told it was a containment breach protocol, that they'd be held and released quietly. But when weeks passed and no one came home, I knew what I'd done." "Why didn't you speak?" He looked at her empty. "They threatened to bury me, like they buried the bus." May 6th, arrests and public fallout. Raymond Newell was taken into custody. More names surfaced: Orion Shield executives, zoning officers, and 2 local deputies from 1994. Morales gave a press briefing. This was not an accident, it was a decision. 25 innocent girls were sacrificed to protect a lie buried beneath our town. The cost was enormous. The mall was demolished, the tunnels sealed off, national headlines ran for weeks. But for families like Lena Langford, there was still one truth they never got. Where are their daughters now? May 20th, 2024, Willow Creek Memorial Garden. The statue stood at the center of the newly built garden. 25 birds, cast in bronze, mid-flight above a ring of wildflowers. Each one bore a name. A week after the truth broke, the town gathered under a cloudy sky for a ceremony that was never supposed to happen, but always needed to. Lena Langford sat in the front row, a scarf wrapped around her thinning hair. She held a small wooden box in her lap. Inside it, Emily's journal, now sealed in a glass case, the ink smudged by time, but her voice still clear. Detective Morales stood beside her, not in uniform, but as a friend. They hadn't said much that morning. Some silences are sacred. The mayor gave a speech. Reporters wept quietly as camera shutters clicked. Names were read. Bells chimed. But Lena didn't cry until the music stopped, and a group of girls from the current Willow Creek Middle School sang the same song Emily once sang in choir, "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," in the weeks that followed. Senator Brigg died of heart failure in federal custody. Raymond Newell pleaded guilty to obstruction and conspiracy. Orion Shield's executives faced trial. The Department of Defense declassified portions of Site C's history, but some things were never recovered. No bodies, no definitive proof of what happened underground. Only fingerprints, diary entries, and the ghosts of choices made in fear. One morning, Morales received a letter at her desk. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. A girl about 13, standing on a beach, smiling. On the back, "Some of us made it out. Keep digging." Kay, she stared at it for a long time, then quietly folded it away. The past had been unearthed, but the story wasn't over. Not yet. For 30 years, the town of Willow Creek lived with a hole no one could fill. The answers, long buried beneath concrete and silence, were never just about justice. They were about remembrance. In the end, it wasn't technology or force that cracked the case. It was a diary, a mother's refusal to forget, a young woman who asked the right question, and a detective who chose to listen. Not every child was found. Not every truth was whole, but the silence was broken. And sometimes that's how healing begins. Because even in the darkest earth, a voice can still rise. Craving twisted mysteries and haunting tales? Hit subscribe before the story fades into the shadows.